I couldn't get the car to start. I reached over and was turning the ignition off and on, and it just clicked dead. And I turned the radio off, and I tried popping the clutch and all that. And then I started to go up a small incline, and the car was slowing down. And then I noticed these men standing in the road. And I thought, what in the world? Because there were two of them. How did it go? One was standing along the edge of the road, kind of on the very edge of it. And then there was one over in the ditch, and then another one further back behind him. And two of those guys were carrying wands. I noticed that right away. They had these sticks that they were messing with down on the ground, pointing them at the ground. But the one guy who was standing on the edge of the road, he stepped out into my lane of traffic. And I remember thinking, well, it's a good thing my car did kill, because this fool is, I would drive right over him. And he stepped out there and put up his hand, and the car rolled to a stop. And I didn't remember anything until I got to my girlfriend's house, and it was an hour later, 2 hours later, 2 hours of missing time.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive, here on Soul Traveller Radio. And I wanted just to remind people about Soul Traveller Radio. Soul Traveller Radio is an all-conscious music station which has my show and a couple of other shows on it that you can listen to free online. You can even listen on your mobile app. Let me show you what the app looks like. Thought I'd just give it a bit of a plug because I never talk about it, and yet I do these shows for the radio. There we go, Soul Traveller Radio on your phone. And you can listen free online to all conscious music all the time. I think it's so important when you're looking to evolve and ascend to have media and music that's uplifting and empowering. And that's what we do on Soul Traveller Radio. And that's why I do these shows. Awakening consciousness, speaking to open hearts and inspired minds. And I have another delicious guest for you today. I've been chatting with Sherry for the last a couple of months. We've been emailing back and forth. She's an author, an extraordinary person, but an author of this amazing book called The Forgotten Promise. Welcome to the show, Sherry.
Hi. Thank you, Karen. Hi. Nice to be here.
So great to have you on the show. Now, I don't remember how I found you. I think I found you surfing online, but your story is absolutely extraordinary and fascinating. I love it. And you've been interviewed quite a bit by different shows. I was actually just doing a bit of research last night, and I saw you speaking at one of Dolores Cannon's conferences. It must have been 2013. It must have been just the year before she left her body. And she said something that really resonated with me. She said, I wanted you to write this book because it has a positive message. And that's really how I felt when I saw your story. I know that you've had a tough life. It's not been easy, but in all of it, there is this really positive message. Shall we start at the beginning?
Sure. So my contact started before I was born, actually. I remember, as part of my awakening process has been to remember who I was before I came here. So when people ask me when was my first contact, I have to go to way back to before I was even born, because I do remember that situation, agreeing to come to the planet. And I remember having a conversation with the guy that I call Da, who is the person I interact with now the most. And I remember having a conversation with him, making him promise to not abandon me and to not leave me here unattended. I had a little bit of a concern that I might get trapped in the third dimension. And so I was coming from what I would call for some reason I call it a 6.2, a sixth dimension step 2 frequency. I don't know density. And so I came from a place where I was part of oneness, and I didn't have much of a body. I just had a form of some sort. And many of us came here to assist the planet at this time during the transition. As Dolores Cannon, the reason I really loved it that she accepted my book is because I heard a little bit about her after I'd written my book. I heard about her, okay. And she was saying the same thing that I was saying in my book, was, there were these waves of volunteers, and I was one of the first waves, having come in 1950. So my contact started before I was born, and had an agreement with Da to be there for me. And he was there from the minute I was born. I remember standing next to him by my bassinet and looking down at the body, that tiny little body laying in the bassinet. I don't have this in the book. It came to me as part of my awakening. As I was writing the book, I was going through an awakening process, and a lot of stuff came clear afterwards. So he was there with me looking down, and he was kind of teasing me about, so how do you like it? And I said I didn't like it. And he said, well, there's no going back. And I said, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. I changed my mind, kind of a thing, which I don't think you can do. Well, obviously you can't, because I'm still here. It was very confining to be in that body. But my contact with him started, that I consciously recall, when I was probably 5 or 6 years old. And then there was the event that happened when I was about 8 or 9, when they took me up in the ship and showed me the planet being destroyed.
Okay. So I want to just set this up for people that are watching that don't know anything about you, because I know that people that are intrigued and interested in your story do know, but for those that are watching or listening that don't. So Sherry is a contactee from an extraterrestrial alien race, higher dimensional beings. You've been contacted and reportedly abducted over your lifetime. And why I wanted to talk to you today was because this abduction story, I've been reading about it for 20 years, is always such a frightening story. That there is some force outside of us that has power over us, that can take us and do terrible things to us. That's been the story that has been perpetuated through, Hollywood and the media. And your story was so fascinating because for so many years you actually did experience that. But what we're talking about now is you as a soul, from that broader perspective, remembering the contract, the promise that you made. And I think all of us that are in bodies have made some plans, some, I wouldn't even call them commitments, because I think it's looser than that. But we had, we made an agreement. We made an agreement to be here at this time, specifically to experience physical dimension in all its beauty and all its limitations. And your story is so intriguing because you've got that connection to another, let me say, dimension, race of physical beings, world. Yeah.
And I agree with everything that you've said, Karen. Every person on this planet definitely came with a mission. The Course in Miracles, which I'm a big advocate, a big fan of the Course in Miracles, the Course says we all have a function that God gave to us. And that function is to remember our true divine nature and to awaken and remember who we are so that we can return back to that. So we're playing this game with ourselves here, falling asleep and forgetting the truth of who we are. So it's true, I lived most of my life believing I was a victim of these abductions. Although I didn't, the abductions went on throughout my entire life, but I didn't consciously know about them until 1989 or 88 when I was regressed. And that opened up all the memories for me. There'd always been lots of strange things happening in my life, but I never paid much attention to it. I didn't know what it meant. But that's when the memories opened up. And of course, I felt like a victim. I felt that life had cheated me, that I had this horrible cross to bear, Mm-hmm. So it's been a huge journey. It's been just an amazing journey. And I wouldn't change places with anyone, but it's been a challenge too, definitely.
Physical life is a challenge, especially when you remember who you are. I think that it makes it even harder. People that have near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences or memories of, because I think that all of us, when we're asleep at night, are flying around the universe having a lovely time. But we come back into the Maya and we don't remember. Most people say, I don't remember my dreams. Some do, some don't. So that doorway, whatever it is, that forgetfulness. It's so powerful, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So how powerful would it be that it would completely shut us off from remembering who we are? And something about your story I loved, because you were such a skeptic. So let's tell the story of your girlfriend. Like, you had an experience, I think it was in your car in the 80s, was it? Where Da is your spirit guide, who comes in the form of what people would call a grey.
Yeah.
And when he's like incarnating a physical form, he uses that form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He says it's a good vehicle to get around in.
Yeah, it's highly functional. He says
highly functional.
Yeah. So you're talking about the one when I was 17, maybe.
Maybe. And you went to your girlfriend's place afterwards and said something and then completely forgot. And she reminded you later, and you said, "You're crazy." But you tell the story. What happened?
Well, that was the one that I got regressed, and that was the one that opened the door for me. So I was 17 years old and driving to my best friend's house, and it takes 15 minutes at most to get to her house from where I lived. I'm driving down the road in my little VW Bug and going on a straightaway. So I'm going around 58 or 60 miles an hour when all of a sudden my car just dies and it just stops running. It's just, and the radio was on. The radio was playing, and it was a Beach Boys song that was on the radio. And I couldn't get the car to start. I reached over and was turning the ignition off and on, and it just clicked dead. And I turned the radio off, and I tried popping the clutch and all that. And then I started to go up a small incline, and the car was slowing down. And then I noticed these men standing in the road. And I thought, what in the world? Because there were two of them. Let's see, how did it go? One was standing along the edge of the road, kind of on the very edge of it. And then there was one over in the ditch, and then another one further back behind him. And two of those guys were carrying wands. I noticed that right away. They had these sticks that they were messing with down on the ground, pointing them at the ground. But the one guy who was standing on the edge of the road, he stepped out into my lane of traffic. And I remember thinking, well, it's a good thing my car did kill, because this fool is, I would drive right over him. And he stepped out there and put up his hand, and the car rolled to a stop. And I didn't remember anything until I got to my girlfriend's house. And it was an hour later, 2 hours later, 2 hours of missing time. I'm forgetting the details of this now. It's interesting.
Well, I read it in your book. I remember one detail which was interesting was that you were driving along and you looked at your clock and you thought, "Oh, I've got 5 minutes to get there, and I'm going to be there right on time." And you were so proud of yourself. Yeah. And then when you arrived, you were 2 hours late. It's like, how did that happen? Yeah.
Oh, I remember that. I'll never forget how it felt to walk into her house, into the kitchen, and stand there looking, expecting it to be 10 o'clock, and watching the clock just click straight up noon. I remember seeing that hand go just like that. And I'm standing there, and, this had just happened to me. It is an amazing thing that it is very frustrating that they can wipe your memory clean like that. That's what they did. And I argued with him before I left them when he told me that they were going to do that. And I said, stop doing that. Because every time, then the next time you see them, and they came for me a couple nights later, they came for me again, because that was a period of what I call intense activity. So when I have intense activity, they're there 3, 4, 5 times a week, sometimes twice a day. And every time, because they wipe the slate clean, I go through the fear thing. My body goes into fear. So what happened that day in the car, under hypnosis, the car rolled to a stop. And I knew that had happened. And that's what I was checking for. I was 17 years old. I had 2 hours of missing time. I finally became obsessed with the idea and needed to know what happened to during those 2 hours of time. It was not rational for me to just go on with my life and not think about it. But I was 30, I think it was exactly 20 years old. So I think I was 37 or 38 years old. 20 years had gone by and I never questioned it. And then all of a sudden I became obsessed with it. That was part of the programming. It was my time to go to work. And it was the harmonic convergence had occurred. I got my orders to go to work. And so under hypnosis, it came that the car did roll to a stop at his feet. He held up his hand like this, and then he leaned onto the hood of my car and looked at me through the windshield, and he said my name, which just caused my heart to just stop. He said, "We've been waiting for you, Sherry." and I just froze. And I wasn't able to see his face. As I looked at him, I couldn't make his face. It kept like a jigsaw puzzle. It was like all distorted, and I couldn't see him. And finally, my mind clicked, and I was able to focus. And then I saw he wasn't human. I think my brain was trying to make him human or something.
Yeah.
And I realized this was not a human. And I looked at the other two guys, and I just was absolutely terrified. And so I locked my doors, and I put my arms on the steering wheel, and I locked them across the steering wheel, and I put my head down. And he kept telling me to look at him, and I wouldn't do it. And he said, I remember him saying, why do you do this to yourself? Why do you put yourself through this every time? Yeah. And he said, it'll be better if you just look at me. But I was just too afraid. And the next thing I know, I feel something moving across my forearms, and I open my eyes, and it's a gray claw. It looks like a claw to me. Yeah. These long fingers, the typical ET gray fingers.
Yeah.
And as soon as they touched me, it was the helper guys that were doing that. He stood by the car, and they wrapped their fingers around my forearms, and they pulled me out of the car. And I was calm as could be then. Once they touch you, once you look at them, you just go immediately calm. Something about that, okay. I don't know.
So something about the energetic connection with the eyes, and that you just, I don't know, you have, maybe you just have memory or something. I don't know. Well, maybe it's their energy. Is it their energy that's calm?
I think it's their energy, because he's able to transfer to me, because later on when I was on the table and they were doing the exam with me, they had a hybrid woman there named Aurora, who's usually present when I'm with them. And she was there standing at the head of the table, and she had her hands on each side of my head. And she was just, there to keep me calm while he was doing his exam on me and doing everything. But when he pulled down the instrument and he said he was going to extract some of my eggs, is what he said, I got hysterical. And so he had her step aside. He came up and he put his hands on each side of my head, and immediately I was calmed. So it's energy. They have come in over the course of the years, and especially later after I got sick, they came in. They do Reiki, and the Reiki that they do is amazing. It's absolutely amazing healing. Mm-hmm. They've not been here to do that now for some time, and I really miss it.
You asked them to come.
I have asked them to come, and he said that they can't. They're not coming in right now. He said they won't see me till I come to them, is what they told me. Mm-hmm. He said what he showed me at the time, and I don't know. This is what he showed me. He said he showed me like the plates of like when you were in 5th and 6th grade, and they explained to you how the plates of the planet work. There were these plates underneath the surface of the planet, and they're shifting and moving and heaving, and that's what causes earthquakes and that sort of thing. He showed me something like that, and he said, your planet is in transition, and you are constantly moving from 3rd to 4th to 5th. You're just bouncing all over the place. And he said, we can't easily get to you physically anymore. He said, we can connect with you on the astral level or sort of thing. But he said, for us to physically come into you, I almost got the image of like they send down like a beam of light or something. They send like a thought as to where I am. He said, by the time we do that and we were to physically manifest there, he said, you'd be into a different dimension or a different place. He said, you're just bouncing all over the place. So he said, it's difficult for us to do that. And he said, there's no reason for us to come anymore. He said, you are raising your frequency. You'll be joining. He said, keep opening your pineal gland. You'll be with us soon enough. That was in 2013 or 14. I'm not good with time. I think it was 2014, maybe in August, that he told me that. And that's basically the last time I had any really good contact with him, because after that, then the attack happened, and I've lost my connection to them to a great extent. So, yeah.
Well, I'm getting huge messages, from my guides. I call them guides, you call them guys. I love, you call your guides guys. If you talk about them, guys, my guys. Hey, my guys. Yeah, I used to call my guys the mob, because as a young girl, it was just like a mob of beings, energy, faceless, personality, no identity, just a mob. You know how you see a mob, you don't see anybody's face, or you don't know who anybody is. That's how I experienced them. So I used to call them the mob, and then I thought, it's not a very pretty name. Maybe I should give them
I like it. And for me, it just evolved, because I have Da, but there's also been others, there's other, and I don't really have names for them. They don't have names. They have energetic signatures. And that's how I find him, and I can just think of him and his energy, and like that connection has always been there. So I just call him.
So you gave the name of the one that you speak to the most, Da, because as a little girl, you said in the book that he felt like a father figure. You know, when you had the regression and you had that memory, you felt like he was like this father figure. And I think as a little girl, you called him like Dada, like Da.
Yes, I think so.
I think that's so sweet.
Yeah, that's where it came from, I'm pretty sure. So. But
what they're saying to me, and they're hounding me to say it, and I'm sort of holding back, is that they're saying that you and anybody that's listening to this conversation, because anyone that's attracted to this conversation is going to be at a particular level. So what they're saying is it's now time for you to use your deliberateness in staying in a high frequency. So this physical dimension is challenging. We have bodies, we get sick, people die, trauma happens, there's deceit and hatred and fear and all that sort of stuff. But as a conscious creator, as somebody who knows who they are connected to source, you know that you have complete power and control over your vibration. Meaning that crap happens, bodies get sick, people leave, stuff happens. And yet we can look at it from the eyes of source or from broader perspective. We can see it through our broader knowing, our knowing of who we are as love, as infinite beings, and when we do look at this game of life as the game of life, we don't lower our frequency back down into the third dimension. So the third dimension is all about fear and separateness and, fear. I'm being, afraid. I'm watching, a family member go through that fear of that survival fear. That's one of the biggest fears, that I won't survive, the money issue. And there was a brilliant teacher in the 20s, 30s, 40s. I think she died in the 50s, called Chauvel Shin. What was her first name? She was an artist and a metaphysical teacher. She wrote a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And it was all about this. It was all about, your word is your wand, what you think you create. It was all about deliberate creation and law of attraction. And your guys, people in other dimensions, people not in third dimension, they understand who they are as powerful beings. They know how to control their vibration. We as humans, we forget. We get lost in the forgetting. Yes. And that's what I thought was brilliant about your story, that you had such a powerful connection with your guys, and yet such a powerful forgetting.
Doc told me once, he said, you're the worst one that we work with, or talking yourself out of these experiences. And that's why, because I would say to him, why did you do this? Because some of the things, like dropping me in the pig pen, that one night, and just different things they do. And he said, that's to leave an imprint. He said, because you will talk yourself out of it. He said, we left these little markers along the way so that you would have a conscious recall of this, because he said, you mark it all up to dreams. Just like that. He said, you just say, oh, that was just a dream that didn't really happen. I'm very pragmatic that way. And so, I'm my biggest critic. It takes a lot to convince me. I have an email right now from somebody that I haven't gotten around to answer. I've had 2 negative emails in all the time since I have come out, and only 2, which is amazing to me. And I've got one right now, and he's like, oh, you have these experiences. Why are we supposed to believe you? You didn't take any pictures and you have no proof and all that. And I say right in the book, I don't have any proof, and I'm not going to give you any proof. I'm not interested in giving you proof. I don't care. If you need proof, then you're not ready to hear this, I guess. And that's okay. And you don't, he has a fear of being gullible, maybe. And I guess everybody comes to their truth at their own time. And this just might not be, their way of finding their way to the truth. Because all that this is Dad told me recently when I started speaking, started going on the conferences and everything. He told me, it was really funny. He said, your story is like the carrot on the end of the stick. He said, you dangle out the story. I'm an abductee. I've been with aliens. Come hear my story. You know, I've frolicked with ETs. Come over here and a little closer. Listen to what I have to say. He said, and when they come close, he said, you beat them with the stick and you say, wake up, wake up, wake up. That's what he said to me. Because he said, it doesn't matter that you hung out with ETs and that you've had these experiences. Well, all you're trying to do is get them to think for themselves and think outside the box, realize that they're bigger than just their body and their story and this life, you know, that they're living on planet Earth, that there's more to them. He said, that's what your story is supposed to do. That's what's, you know, supposed to happen by this. It's not the story of talking to ETs and being, you know, picked up by the ETs and taken on the ship and all that sort of thing, which is all interesting. I understand the fascination with it. I think it's interesting too, but that's not the heart and soul of it. The purpose of the whole thing was for me to play this role to shock people into going, that lady's crazy. I think she's crazy. I'm going to look into this more and, you know, and prove that she's crazy. And maybe they'll look into it and go, maybe there is life out there. Maybe there is more to, you know, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm the perfect one to do it in regards to me, not because I don't care what people think about me.
I think you're the perfect one to do it because of your skeptical, pragmatic mind, because that is what we're dealing with en masse. And I have that mind too. Like, I was talking aliens 20 years ago, and somewhere in between then and like a few years ago, I sort of stopped talking aliens and thinking about aliens, and then thought, all those hippie Byron people, they're all into the aliens. Not that I disbelieve, but I just walked away from it for a while and just led my life, right? And led a third dimensional life, and, you know, brought up my daughter and got married again and got divorced again and did all that sort of stuff. I still worked as a healer, though. I was still doing energy transmitting and all that sort of stuff and psychic stuff. But this year in particular, and it's probably the energies that are hitting our planet, I woke up to the whole alien thing. Like, I was just really connected. I mean, I remember lying in bed with my second husband, and he said, can you talk to aliens? And I said, sure. And I had this being show up in my third eye, and I very clear vision, and he gave me this energy ball. And he said, play with it. And so I would play with it in my healings, and it was amazing. And then I forgot about that, you know. So it's sort of like they come and go. But this year in particular, they have been very present, I think, in my life and in other people's. Like, they've made themselves known. And you've probably noticed this year you've had a lot of attention to people contacting you, and much more attention with your book. And
right. It's the time.
It's the time. They're making themselves known. I think that, you know, when I was watching you last night at that conference that you were speaking at with Dolores interviewing you, you were magnificent. You were in your teacher, you know. You weren't in the personality and the story. You weren't even in the story of this happened to me and isn't this a fascinating story. You just sort of, you fell into the teacher. You were in that vibration of the teacher. And towards the end of it, I just fell into this really deep meditation as I was watching you, because the energy that you were transmitting as you were speaking was so soft and so beautiful and so loving. It was so loving. And that's what I think, you know, when you said, you know, the alien story is great, but I'm really here to teach love. I think that's, you know, your message more than anything.
I know it is. I know it is. I mean, that's absolutely what it's about. It's not the sensationalism of the ETs or the aliens visiting the planet. It's to awaken humanity. The souls on this planet, so many of them have been trapped here for so long. And, you know, the compassion that I feel for them is just sometimes overwhelming for me, because I know how it should be for this planet. I know how humanity should be living. And it's heartbreaking. And so if there's anything that I can do to awaken anyone, to just send them in the direction of that, so that they can discover their true divine nature, that's all I care to do. You know, I'm not trying to convince anybody of my experiences or anything. It's not at all about that. So, yeah, definitely.
Well, I think that judgment is probably the biggest problem we have you know, this criticism and judgment of someone who thinks differently, someone who looks different. And you know, they've said to me that they won't make themselves known physically because we can't even love each other. How are we going to love a being that looks so different to us? I mean, we point our fingers at Muslims and, you know, people that look different and have different religions, and they're human. We can't love each other. How are we going to love people from other dimensions and other realities? So your story really is about that judgment too, because you, as in your ego mind, in your physical mind, you were really sort of judgmental. And when your girlfriend said, you know, you told me that you saw some aliens on the road, and you said to her, "Are you crazy? I would."
I know it, isn't it? It's hilarious. I know it. I know.
Yes.
I was, you know, there was such a contradiction. You know, I mean, there was that person who was like that, who was judgmental about it and aware of how that would sound to other people, and then there's this other person. You know, it's been quite an experience to see that I shed that person, you know, that three-dimensional person, you know, that fell away rather quickly when I started writing the book and started coming into the awareness. But yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey. And along those lines, Da told me once, talking about being prejudiced about the way people look, somebody said to me, somebody who interviewed me said once, well, if he's just wearing a container and he really doesn't have a body, I mean, all the higher dimensional beings, they don't have bodies, of course, once you get past the fifth dimension or so. And he said, so when he comes onto the planet to do his work, he puts on that suit. And I said, yes. And he said, well, why doesn't, since that suit scares you, that body scares you, why doesn't he wear a human body when he comes here? That way it'd be easier on you. If he really loves you, he would do that. Yeah. And I said, hey, that's a pretty good question. You know, why aren't they doing that? Because every time I see him, they're like, ah. And so I asked him that. The next time I saw him, I guess I asked him, you know, why don't you come present yourself as a human? And he goes, as a human? He said, oh, that's too fragile. He said, the human body is too fragile. He said, we wouldn't be able to do our work as well. And he said, this, what do they call it? Not the gray, he called it the, where is it? What else is the word for those?
Zeta?
Yeah, Zeta. He called it the,
Zeta.
Yeah, he said, this Zeta container, this Zeta suit, he said, modeled after the Zeta body, he said, is highly functional. He said, so we wear this. And I said, well, it's just that it scares me, you know. He goes, oh, it scares you? And I said, yeah, it scares me. And he goes, have you ever looked in the mirror? And I said, excuse me? And he goes, well, when you smile, he said, all those teeth, he said, it looks like you're going to eat us up. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought of that. He's like, you know, it goes both ways. He said, it's all what you're used to. So I thought that was hilarious when he told me that. So
exactly, it's all what you're used to. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like Asian people say we look the same, you know, like what we say you all look the same.
Yeah, I know. Terrible.
I know. Oh, look, yeah. The body, the attachment. So judgment and the attachment to the body, that's where humanity has become lost, I think. Because we think that we are our bodies. And I tell you what, you've been sick. You know that when your body's sick, God, it feels bad.
It's been really an experience, Karen, really. Because I never was sick my entire life, or if I was able to self-heal. Yeah. And I haven't been able to heal this. I'm still working on it. But to be sick is a huge distraction. And there have been many days where I just want it just to be over. And it just doesn't seem worth it to try to even continue. It's a huge struggle. So, yeah, being sick, that's why the Course in Miracles says disease is a defense against the truth. It's the ego's, it's the biggest stick that it's got in its bag of tricks to pull out to make you forget the truth of who you are. So it's been my biggest challenge, definitely. So
that's interesting. Yeah. Disease is the biggest. What did you say? The disease?
Disease is a defense against the truth.
Defense against the truth.
Defense against the truth. The truth being that because when you're sick, you're so tuned into your body, and I'm constantly running to different therapies and doctors and, trying to get myself better. and going for healings and different things. And so you're very preoccupied with the body, and you're always aware because it doesn't feel well.
But it's not a wake-up call to detach yourself from the identity of the form. Like I remember one of my favorite teachers, Byron Katie. Do you know Byron Katie? So when she had her epiphany, her awakening, whatever it was that she had when she woke up, I call it she woke up dead, because she woke up in this expanded awareness. You know, she said she looked in the mirror and she saw this face looking back at her, this body, this capsule, this container, and she knew categorically that what she was looking at was not her. It was like some woman looking back at her. And she had that, so she had this expanded awareness, and she had that separation from identifying me as this container. And I think that's where we get, you know, really lost, and probably illness is there to teach us to separate from the container and look at the body as the body and not me. I'm sick, the body's sick, I'm sick. You know, there's two different ideas there.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been, not always, but I think since awakening, since going through the awakening period and remembering more and more who I was and who I was before I came here and all that, I really detached from my body a fair amount. So when it got sick, I kind of just looked at it and went, well, you're sick. You know, I can't stay. You know, I need to leave. I'm not going to stay here and suffer because, you know, that's not my purpose. That's not what I'm here for. So I really struggled for a long time because it's been a couple of years now that I've been really quite ill. And I had to really have a lot of conversations and really do a lot of soul searching to, shall I stay or shall I go? Because I'm not attached to my body. I'm not attached to this physical world. And I know where I would be if I wasn't here, and I have a yearning to go there. But I have a commitment to my mission, and I have a commitment to my children and to the life that I have here also. So it's been a bit of a dilemma for me, and I go back and forth. And so I just had a talk one day, basically. I don't know who I even directed it to. I suppose Course in Miracles, probably the Holy Spirit, the higher self, whatever you want to call that entity. But I think I just basically said, am I meant to leave? Because my body is really sick and I know I'm not here to suffer. So if I'm meant to leave, then I'm going to just do that. And I talked to my daughter about it, and I talked to my significant other, and started making arrangements in that direction. And I said, if I'm not meant to go, then, you know, make it clear to me, you know, make it so that if I can't be healed, if that's not meant to happen, then at least I need to have a quality of life to where I'm not suffering so badly every day. And so then these series of miracles happened just in very quick succession that took me to different modes of therapy, you know, it happened very fast, you know, radionics, scalar energy. I'm being treated with that, which was huge to get the poison out of my body because I couldn't handle chelation. So I just put it right out there, and it seems that I'm meant to stay because I am getting these people showing up in my life that it was just miracle after miracle. It's just they just fell together. And so I'm going to see where that takes me. But that's how I feel about being sick. You know, my body is my body, and I have a lot of respect and love for it, but I'm not here to suffer. Also.
Yeah. Great. Let me ask you, is this your first incarnation in human form?
Yes.
I thought I heard you say that you had a past life regression. You had a regression where you saw yourself in another lifetime as a human.
No, I had see, it's an interesting thing to talk about this because there is only the now moment, and you overlay the now moment with oneness. And so my body has history. My body has had previous lives on the planet, and some of this poison is a theme that runs throughout my life, and I believe that is my body's maybe possibly karma or something. But I have not been, my soul, myself, my essence has not been in human form on this planet before. So I had experience where I got up and I looked in the mirror and I saw myself as this Scottish, I think she was Scottish, Irish or Scottish, young lady. She was probably in her, right around 30 or in her 20s or so. And I knew it was me as I looked into the mirror, and it didn't look like, I looked in the mirror, I had red hair and freckles and a broad face, and I looked altogether different. But I knew that that was me inside of her. And I wondered about that, and I knew that we were sharing, you know, maybe that was a soul. I don't know if that was from my soul family or what it was, but there was the idea, what I was told when I had that experience was, you know, you are looking into your own eyes. Every time you meet another person, you are meeting yourself due to the oneness factor. But yeah, I don't really have any past lives to go back on. Yeah, my body, the body has some, she has some experiences.
Well, what I thought, as a soul that's, you know, had the first experience here in physical form, you've done physical life very well. You know, you had a very successful business, and yeah, you've done it very well.
I did. Yeah, I did. I had fun. It's funny because my ex-husband, we broke up after the regression and the ET thing started to happen, and our marriage was already in trouble at the time. He remembers me saying when we got married, when we first got together, he remembers me telling him that I had a connection to other worlds or something. I don't know. But for sure, he remembers me saying that I only have this one time here, and I'm going to make the most of it. I want to experience it all.
Wow.
And I do. When he told me that, something in me clicked, and it's like I do remember that. I was like, I want to experience it all, and I have experienced it all. You know, I like to tell people I climbed the mountain, and then I got booted off, and you know, I didn't just slide down the mountain. I got kicked off of it because when I went through my clearing, you know, as you do sometimes when you awaken, I mean, I lost everything: family, friends, money, wealth, business, properties. I mean, my slate was wiped clean of everything. And so it's been interesting. I wouldn't change anything except maybe the poisoning. I would change that.
But that's all a part of the human experience too. I mean, to gain and then to lose. I think that in other dimensions we can't have that experience of, you know, gaining material stuff and then losing it all. And I've actually watched rich businessmen. I've never really done that because I've never really had anything, so I've had nothing to lose. But I've watched rich businessmen gain like huge amounts of wealth and mansions and then come crashing down. One who's dead now, one Australian businessman, he even went to jail. He won the America's Cup. He was on top of the world, and Australia and the world loved him, and then he was thrown in jail for tax fraud, and he lost everything. You know, this roller coaster ride. It's like, like an adventurous soul that came into experience, like, give me the gamut of the human experience. I want it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
It is. I mean, I haven't done the go to jail thing. The recession hit, and I was doing some really big development, some big projects, and my bank went under, and I lost $4 million in just the blink of an eye. Because everything I had managed to earn up to that point left me, you know, pretty much leveled. I kept my house. I drew the line. When I was going through my losses, I drew the line at losing my house. I said, I just sat one day, again, had that talk with whoever that is that I'm talking to, and I said, you know, I don't think I need to have the experience of losing my house. I've detached from it. I've let it go. If I'm meant to, I'm in acceptance of that. And I finally got to it because I love my home. But I said, I'm good with it. But I don't think I need to. I think I processed it. I don't think I need to lose it. And you know what? I was like within just a smidgen of losing my house. But it just worked out just to where I was cleared enough in the bankruptcy and in all that stuff that you go through, that I was able to keep my house, which was shocking to everybody because that rarely happens. But it just happened, the numbers balanced out to where I was able to keep that. And then the other thing was my sister, she was diagnosed because I'd lost my family through my birth family, and my two daughters both through estrangement, death. My dad, Alzheimer's, so I lost him to that. I lost everybody, and just in a matter of months, you know, they were just all gone. And then my sister was diagnosed with 4th stage cancer. And I drew the line at that one too. And I said, nuh-uh. I said, you know, I've lost my mom and my dad and my brothers and my daughters and my everybody. And I'm like, not her too. She's the last one. And I'm not. I said, you know, let's talk about this. And she's still with us. So, I was told to access a different timeline. And so I talked to her about it, and we worked it through. And so I believe that's what we did. So,
I want to talk about timelines, because I find timelines so confusing and so fantastic. Confusing to the little ego mind that, you look on the internet and we're talking about this planet, we're talking about humanity and how we're going here and how we're going there. And when you look at Bashar, when you listen to Bashar, Darryl Anker, who channels Bashar, he talks about, choose a different timeline.
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, can't humanity do that as well? Like, there is a timeline where the planet explodes and humanity gets wiped out. There's a timeline where humanity survives. There's a timeline where humanity ascends. There's all these different probable realities out there. Which one are we choosing? And I think you illustrated that really well when you were talking about chemtrails. I saw you talk about chemtrails, and everyone was down on, the whole, we're being poisoned by the powers that be. They're poisoning us with chemtrails. And you really wanted to look at that in a different perspective. Do you want to tell that story?
I do, because I think that's a huge lesson that I learned. And the day that I filmed that, I know I was really sick that day, but I insisted on doing it because I just wanted to get it out there. Because everyone I knew, including myself, we were really falling into that victim mode every time we got sprayed, and it was happening every day. And it was just so disheartening to step out your door and see those chemtrails. So I prayed about it and asked, what is this all about? And, I'm getting feedback a little bit. And I even wrote to some of the spiritual teachers and asked them, what does this mean? So I went for a walk one day and went out on the trail. And as I parked my car to get out, the trail crossed over the road, and I could go south or I could go north on the trail to go for my walk. And above the trail, right above the road, is where if you looked up to the south, the sky was covered in chemtrails, just crisscrossed like crazy. How they do those big X's.
Yeah.
And to the north, right above to the north where the trail went north, there was not a single chemtrail. It just all ended right there. And I looked up at that, and I remember thinking, okay, I think this is freaky. There's something going on here. But I was like, of course I'm going to walk to the north. So I took Pookie, my dog, and no sooner had we stepped onto the trail to head north when along comes this almost like a cartoon. And I've had this before, cartoon-looking things happen. A cartoon-type jet flying way too low, way too slow, way too loud. Everything about it was outrageous. And it came flying, and I stood there and watched it, and it turned on the chemtrails right as it got overhead over me. And I watched it, and I stood there, and I wanted to laugh, but I was too mad. I got angry, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? I literally said that out loud. And I watched the plane fly low, and it followed the trail that I was going to walk on. And there's a bend in the trail up about probably a half mile or a mile up the road, or up the trail, and it bent, and the plane followed that bend. So it sprayed right over my trail, just mirrored it. And so there it was in the sky, the trail, the trail of the chemtrails mirroring the path I was going to walk on. And I just sat there, and I told Pookie, I said, this isn't real. I said, this isn't real. I said, this is an illusion. I said, this is the answer to my question. What are the chemtrails all about? And as I heard myself talking, I was like, the answer is that they're an illusion. They're not real. Of course they're not real. Of Course in Miracles tells us anything that's not love is not real. And this is certainly not love. So I was like, I scooped up Pookie, and I went back to the car, and I left, and I went home, and I was thinking about it all the way home, and I was like, what does this mean? And I got, that we're creating this. The collective consciousness is creating this, just like it's creating all the evil in our world, because it's not real. It's our fear that's manifesting, and that's what the chemtrails are. That's all. And so it came to me. That's all we think of ourselves, is that we're nothing better than bugs, that when we deserve to be sprayed and poisoned. And so I came home, and I went into my study for some reason, and it's the one and only time I ever read did my Course in Miracles in the morning, sitting in my library. And I did the Course in Miracles in there for some reason. And then after I did my meditation like I always do. And when I was done, I opened my eyes, and there was a plane right out the window heading right for my house. I could see it way off, and it was spraying this big plume of chemtrails. And I just looked at it, and I had no reaction to it whatsoever. I just looked at it, and I thought, you're not real. And I just felt all this love. I had this great meditation. I just felt all this love. And so I just stood up, and I looked out the window, and I closed my eyes as the plane got closer, and I pictured the pilot, and I pictured the person who ordered that plane to go up and do this. And I just said, you're innocent. You know, you're innocent. And if you knew better, you wouldn't be doing this. And so you're innocent. And I just send love to you, and total acceptance and forgiveness, not forgiveness like you're doing something wrong, but forgiveness as in it's all just fine. Mm. And when I opened my eyes, the chemtrail disappeared almost all the way back. But it was still way further away. I could see part of it. But there was a second plane coming for almost on the same trail, but a little bit to the north more. So I went to the other window, and I looked at that, and I started to cry when that happened. And so I went to this other window, and I looked at this second plane that was coming, and I did the same thing. And again, and this time the plane just veered off to the north, and the spraying just disappeared, all of it, just gone. And I started to shake. And I was sobbing because it was just so powerful. And then I was like looking out my window, I wanted another chemtrail. I wanted another plane to come. I wanted to do it again. It was so cool. Well, I was like waiting all morning. And then finally at about 11 or 11:30, another plane came flying from the south up over the back hill behind my house. And I was excited, and I ran outside. I was like, come on, get closer to where I can see you better. And right when he came over the crest of here, where I could see him better, coming over my house, I did the same thing, closed my eyes and sent him love, and it just very quickly. And all of a sudden I noticed the sound of the plane was gone. I opened my eyes, and I looked where he should have been, right straight up almost above me, and he wasn't there. And I was like, where did he go? And I ran around the tree, and then I ran around my house, and then I realized he's gone. The plane was gone. The chemtrail was gone. I ran in my house, and I called my girlfriend, and I said, they're going to come and kill me. They're going to come and bomb my house because I disappeared off chemtrail plane, and they're going. And finally, I was like, wait a minute. And then I realized, no, I moved into a different frequency.
Yeah, you changed timelines. You switched. Yeah,
I switched it. Yeah.
You know, so, when I first started massaging, when I was in my 20s or 30s, I can't remember, early 30s. I started seeing people's past lives and, reading their thoughts and doing all that sort of stuff that we do when we're not in this body, right? Stuff that's normal for like that's who we are, right? That's how we communicate telepathically. And I started awakening. And I remember asking my guides, my mob, am I making this up? And they said, yes.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I said, no, you don't understand. This sort of, I see people in their past lives, and, I've got all this imaging and all this stuff coming to me. Is it just my imagination? Am I making this up? And they said, yes. And I said, no, I need to, is it, and I was really frustrated with them. And they said, Karen, you're making all of it up. You're making up that there's a body on your massage table and that you're massaging them. And they just kept telling me, you're making it up, you're making it up. And it was so frustrating because I was thinking this was reality, and that's where we go. We think that this is our reality, and yet it is just a vibrational frequency that we can mold and play with by just shifting our frequency. Exactly. I love that story because that's exactly what you were doing.
I know.
And I want to tell you this story too because it might help you with your healing. Yeah, a friend of mine had cancer, and she moved to Byron Bay, and she had an awakening experience and she did exactly to the cancer what you did to the plane. You're not real.
Yeah.
You're not real. And it went away.
Really?
Yeah.
Because one thing I was told was to welcome it, to accept it, and to just let it express itself fully, and then to ask it to leave. And so I know that that's what my guides taught me as far as they taught me self-healing in a couple different ways to do it. And it's always to, you welcome it. And maybe that's what she was doing. But then you reach a certain point where you're like, okay, now you leave, and you exit my body. You don't belong here. You don't belong in this dream. So it is hard to remember in the matrix, when you're in this matrix, that we're in a matrix.
It is very hard, because I tell you, 20 years later, she's now diabetic, and, you know, she got very, very sick. So she had done it one instant and then couldn't in another. And that's the game of life. You know, just have to keep remembering the rules, the game of life and how to play it. Florence Scovel-Shinn was the name of that author. I think she died in the 50s. The game of life. The game of life says that any resistance creates a reality that we don't want, and we have to stop pushing against it and love it. Right. Because love creates the reality that we do want. So love the pain, and love the disease, and love the chemtrails, and love the politicians. You know?
But see it for what it is. You know, love it, but not as in embracing it, but for what it is. Love it because you know that it's not real. It's just part of your experience. I mean, I look at my illness as being, I invited it. On some level, I invited this. And I know that. So I can uninvite it also. I haven't gotten there yet, but there's something that's going to come from this experience, I'm quite sure, because everything in my life has had huge ahas to it. You know, there's always a great story when I get through it. So I'm waiting for that to happen with this. So yeah, it's interesting, and it's a challenge for us to remember that we are dreaming this, and that we're all just dreaming it, and we're really not even here. We're holographic, and we're just, it's energy manifesting as these, what we think are solid and real bodies, but our whole universe is just nothing but a hologram. Even our scientists know that now. They're talking along those lines. So it's exciting times that we're living in, but it's very hard in the matrix, especially right now here in the United States. It's, you know, chaotic. Definitely the financial situation, you know, the presidential races, everything that's going on. I quit watching news and media and television, you know, years and years and years ago, and I'm so glad I did. But even still, some of it, you know, it seeps through, and you see glimpses of what's going on out there, and I just don't want to participate in it. I just don't want to.
You know, my guys say to me that you don't have to quit watching it, but if you watch it from that same viewpoint that we've been talking about, it's the play of life, it's the Leela, it's the play, it's the game. Right. And not get so emotionally, like what happens with humanity is they get so attached to the drama and they start shaking their fists at it. And I see this in the spiritual community a lot too. There are so many beautiful spiritual warriors out there that want to help the planet and help the world, but they're so in their anger and they're so in their resistance. And really that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you too, because a lot of the people in the sort of alien ET community are still in that fear. You know, they're you know, they're coming to get us and they're harming us, and you know, all that sort of fear. And so the emotion shows you your attachment to the story. But if you can watch the story, drama, the political environment, and not be emotionally attached and see it as the Leela and see it through the eyes of love, or see it through the eyes of source or broader perspective, then you can watch television and it won't affect you. But if you watch it and get upset, then turn it off.
I find it to be a big waste of time. I mean, I just have better things to do. So that's why I choose not to participate in it or watch it. It's dumb, and it's just a poor use of time. I'd much rather be watching some videos online, some spiritual, uplifting, positive things. I just don't want that crap going into my mind. And I wanted to comment on what you said too about the light workers right now. A lot of the light workers are really discouraged and are actually, they're getting angry too, and they're fed up, and they're wondering, you know, when the event or when whatever it is that they believe is going to happen is going to happen. And they're some of them are forgetting, you know, that this is the matrix and we are creating our reality as we go. And there's some of them are falling into the idea that they're victims. And that's a huge problem right now. And I'm really saddened to see that, because I'm reading more and more of that. And I understand the frustration and being tired. I've been there and I get there. But you have to pull yourself back out of it and realign yourself with your truth, you know, and know that you're here for a purpose, and you can't afford to have those negative thoughts. You just can't afford it. It doesn't serve the greater good. So our job as light workers and truth sayers is to be here to hold that candle, you know, keep that light in the dark for those who truly are unawakened.
Absolutely. And also as light workers too, you know, when you do touch source, when you do touch that love and that connection, and you find that frequency and you find that vibration, you don't even have to be a light worker. You can touch it with your baby, with your dog, with your grandchildren. That love, that connection and love. It's there, and in humanity, you don't even have to be. But when you fall from that vibrational stance, the lower frequencies feel so much more devastating. And so a negative thought impacts you so much worse than it did before you awakened or before you touched your soul or your source. And that's the problem with light workers, and they do get sick because they do indulge in third dimensional thinking. They sort of hang out in the fourth and the fifth dimensions, being psychic and helping people and connected, and then fall to earth by maybe putting on the news or something, getting upset about something, and it really is a devastating reaction in the physical form. It does. I do it all the time. Like, I know that when I'm feeling pain in my body, it's because I'm indulging in third dimensional thinking. It's just a reminder to wake up again, get back to love, get back to love. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the way I look at it too. I mean, I've gone round and round to myself about the situation that I'm in, and I try to retrace, where did I misstep, and I keep looking for that, and I'm like, oh, stop it, Sherry, just stop it. Just, it is what it is. I put it on my path. I purposely put it here to experience. And so just experience it and go with it and stop analyzing it, So it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, but doing interviews like this and the work that you're doing and others, that's to keep us focused where we need to stay focused on the love and the forgiveness and the acceptance. Yeah.
So I know that you've been lying low because of your illness, but are you planning to do any more conferences or talks, or are you planning to write another book?
Well, I just heard Contact in the Desert has been very kind about waiting for me to see how my health improves, and I have to make a decision on that in the next day or two. If I do any conference, then that would be the one that I would do. And I'm hoping to be able to do that one. It would be the only one I would probably do this year. I've been invited to lots of cool places. I'd just love to travel, but I can't spend too much time on a plane right now with the situation the way it is. So I'm cutting way back on everything. As for writing another book, I have to get myself into a better place before I can do that. I would like to write another book, but I haven't even written on my blog for months, because I feel that until I have something really, truly positive and uplifting to say, because I'm struggling with my own negativity and my own darkness at this time, So until I feel positive, I'm not gonna put anything out there.
But we all do, and I think that your journey and your struggle it's all our struggles. So I think to be a teacher, we don't have to be perfect. I think that our struggles and our overcoming those struggles is what teaches people how to overcome theirs. That's the beauty. That's being a teacher. I was playing a song this morning on the radio of a beautiful teacher, Ido Khan, he's had the gorgeous young wife who died last year at 36. And I was listening to some of his early music talking about Only Love is Real. That's one of his songs. And, it's not the love of the girlfriend or the lover, it's the love of source. And I was thinking to myself this morning, boy, when his wife left the planet, did he learn that lesson? And that's what happens as teachers. If you're going to teach something, boy, are you going to experience it.
I know.
Oh my God, give me a break.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, we open ourselves up to everything. And I mean, I still do my prayer of surrender every day, and I still say, your will be done, and use me in whatever way you can, whatever is the highest and best for all concerned. And if that meant me experiencing this, then so be it. So yeah, I agree that the last thing you want to do is think that you're above it all, and that no harm will come to you, and that you have all the answers. I've never said I have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that the only thing that's real is love. And this planet, these souls on this planet, they're waking up to it, but it's just not fast enough. I wish I just wish it would have more of a catch fire, But I think we're heading into some very chaotic times, and the harvest, as my guys call it, the harvest is happening, and there's going to be a sifting out, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, how this occurs.
What's your perspective on the two Earths? I've heard so many different perspectives about there's two Earths. There's one that's ascending, and or there's two. Let me think. Michaela Sheldon, who's a channel, talked about two consciousnesses living on the planet. So one in the fifth and one in the third, and then that would separate out, and one part of humanity would ascend and live in the light, more in the light, let's call it, and those that did ascend would stay on a third dimensional reality, still going through that wheel of karma or indulging in third dimensional paradigms. What have your guys spoken to you about that? Because
a little bit they have, not a lot, not as much as I want. I ask a lot of questions, and I get things like, all you need to know for now. And so
I love that.
yeah, all the time. So, but what they told me that I know for sure is that the planet is ascending into the fifth frequency, into the fifth density, and those who are able to resonate with that frequency will go with her, and those that cannot will be taken to another planet to continue on.
How will that happen, do you think?
I asked them the same thing. I said, I'm going to land and pick them up and take them there, and I got an image that was no. And I guess I'm not sure. It's almost like they just disappeared. I don't know if it's through death or what happens, but I think it might be through death that they will continue on their journey. They told me over and over again, there's no judgment in this, and it doesn't mean that they failed. Nobody failed. It's just a matter of who's ready and who's experienced enough to learn the lessons they needed to learn to awaken to the truth. So those that haven't, they just need more time in a three-dimensional world. They did tell me, because I was very concerned about people that I love and care about who are not awakening, and I wanted to know, are they going to stay on a planet like this, which is quite harsh? And they said that it all depends on where they resonate, but that the option is available to go to a third dimensional planet, that it's not a prison planet, is not controlled like this one has been, that it's not as dark and not so much duality, that they will be able to continue to learn their lessons and ascend eventually on, as they were meant to. This planet was hijacked, as we know. So the ascension process was supposed to have occurred for many of these souls a long time ago, but they were, this system was set up for reincarnation, have these short little lives where you can't possibly learn what you need to learn in one lifetime. So then they created this idea of reincarnation, come back and learn your lessons and all that garbage. And it's a cycle that you're trapped in. So you have to know that when you leave your body, you don't have to come back onto planet Earth. There are other choices available to you. And you don't really have to come back here to pay the karmic price. You can balance the energy just by looking at it and loving it and recognizing, that, it was just part of your experience. So
yeah, the way my guides have said it is that we all have choice to come back. But from that perspective, when we look at the benefits of being in this dense vibration, we see the benefits, like we see them. I mean, it's a tough ride, but at the same time, it takes a courageous soul to be here.
Right.
But it's like looking at a mountain. The taller the mountain, the bigger the challenge. But when you climb it, the bigger the reward, the more satisfaction you feel with yourself. And that's how I equate. That's how the analogy I give to being, having a human ride, because it is such a challenging. But that we're not trapped here. We do have choices as souls, but most of us choose to return because we see the benefit in the contrast.
Yeah. I think we see the benefit, but I also think we're lied to. I mean, I really do believe that the controllers are there and meeting you and are saying to you, here's, you didn't learn this lesson, you didn't learn that, and you really should go back and fix that. And that's garbage. I mean, from the perspective that I am looking at it from, that's just pure garbage. You don't have to come back and fix anything or make amends for anything. You have balance, you have energy that you put out that needs to be balanced, but you don't have to go back and that, because karma has been a big lie. That's a big lie. And
well, I tend to agree with that. I mean, Esther Hicks from the Abraham teaching says the same things, that there is really no such thing as karma as we've been presented, as it has been presented through the sort of dogma of Indian tradition. And, I have a family member who died, who has come back, and she's now, funnily enough, she's 18 and she's living with me, and she was my mother in this lifetime. And I've watched the desires and what she went through in one life, and now I'm watching her do it in another life, and I'm seeing how her desires unfulfilled in one life, she has the opportunity to fulfill in this life. Now, I wouldn't call that karma, but I would call that, oh, I didn't get to do that in that life. Well, I'm going to come back and do it, so I do get to do it. Like, it's not karma as much as desire. It's like,
well, part of it comes from the fact that you have these very short lives here. You only live 50, 60, 70, 80 years here, and that's not long enough to realize anything. It's not long enough to awaken. It's not hardly, or to reach enlightenment. So it's a system, it's a game that was put into place to really defeat the soul that's the souls that are on planet Earth. I mean, it's really a game of control. So when you decide to come back, I believe you're pressured to come back. You're told that if you come back, you can learn this and you can fix this, you can do that right, and you can all that, and that's fine. But by the time you get here, you and start to wake up and try to wake up and learn. I mean, because your memories are blocked. I mean, it's just a rotten game. It's just a rotten game. Most planets are where you live for hundreds of years, and it's about learning to be a co-creator. It's about learning to fulfill your desires and to be all you are meant to be. Here, it's struggle. It's like, you need to, get a job and get an education, and you're told all these lies that you're supposed to be in education, and history and all that, which is all bunk. And it's just, all of it is just deceit. And I'm feeling a little cynical, I guess, but it's just not the best place to try to come to awaken. It is a good place to come to experience duality.
Well, I don't know if it's the best place to come to awaken, but it's definitely the most challenging place to come to awaken. That's why I think that the people that, the souls that choose to come here are really courageous souls, because it is, like, you're going to go into an environment where you'll completely forget who you are. And then the challenge is to remember. And it's just a harder challenge. And so it takes a braver, more courageous soul to say, yeah, I'm up for that.
But there's also souls, Karen, who have been here and they've been trapped in this, and you can see them. When I meet certain people, I pick it right away. They've been trapped here for a long time, and the life has gone out of them. They're defeated. They don't even have a desire to learn or to try to expand their awareness. They're just defeated. They've had lifetime after lifetime.
I've got a best friend like that, actually.
Yeah. There's a lot of souls that are like that, and you can see them. Sometimes you can just pick up from them. There's no joy. There's no hope. They're just defeated. And that's a sad, sad state to be in. That's a terrible state. And that's what this planet has done. The controllers on this planet have done to the souls that came here originally because they wanted a challenge and that, but then they got stuck. They got trapped here. That's why before I came in, I saw that. I got to hang around for a while and observe the planet. I came out of my love for Gaia. Humanity, I was confused by humanity. I was like, why do they do that? Why do they keep going back? And why don't they wake up? Why don't they go somewhere else? Then I saw what was happening. And when I came here, I told Da, do not let me become one of those souls that gets trapped there, that thinks I have to stay here and recycle and fix things. And, I'm going in one time for the ascension, and that's it. And because I did not want to have to get stuck here like so many souls have. There's too many of those. So,
and that's why you had so many contacts, so many what you perceive as abductions. So it was really interesting, because before you had your hypnosis, you were thinking that you were a victim and that you were being abducted by aliens, and it was terrifying. But then when you realized that you had actually said, please don't let me forget, they just kept waking you up, and then you'd fall asleep again, and then, well, let's wake her up again, and you'd fall asleep, let's wake her up again. And each time it was like a terrifying experience, and then, oh, hang on, it's not actually a terrifying experience.
No.
It's just being awakened.
But you know what? If they walk in the door right now, which they don't walk in, they come. But anyway, if they were to show up here right now, my body would probably still go, I would still. Now the Draco, for some reason, when the Draco show up, I'm not afraid of them. Now, go figure that. I don't know why the Draco show up here, and and I probably should have fear of them, but instead I just feel overwhelming love for them when I see them. Now, why that is, I don't know. And what are the other beings I've seen? It's only my guy, that gray body, that gray form, that for some reason, I think it's because it traumatized me when I was little. Having them come in the middle of the night and take me and carry me off, or come in to pick me up at the playground or wherever I was. I think a certain amount of that trauma stayed with my body, and my body responds. Even though I rationally know I love them and I want to be with them, I still get fearful. So,
it's so interesting. I remember as a little kid thinking, beam me up, Scotty. I want to go up into a space. I'd love to hang out with Ali. And you had no fear as a little kid. And my brother was the same. And I was recently at his place, absolutely obsessed with sci-fi. He is obsessed, like watches it, like gets the net, the Netflix, and watches it. And I said to him recently, do you believe in aliens? And he said, because he's not awake, and he said, oh, yeah. I said, well, do you believe that they're here on Earth? Oh, no. Do you think they'll ever come to Earth? Oh, no. Like, he's absolutely convinced that there's life out there in the universe, but it's not going to contact us anytime soon. And that seems to be the norm. That seems to be the scientific view, that science has said life exists on other planets, but it's not going to contact us. Like, that's the mass consciousness.
Is that right? Really? That's interesting to me. I thought everybody, for the most part, knew we're not alone and that they're here. That you don't think most people realize that? Wow.
That's why I think that you coming out with your story and your book was so, challenging to people, because it seems so crazy and so, so mad to think that you were abducted by aliens, and in fact that you have this relationship with them. You can talk to them telepathically, and they can actually take your physical body and take you up on a ship. I mean, to most people that seems completely crazy, that just can't happen.
Yeah, I guess I get that. I mean, because when I first awakened to it, I rebelled against it and I fought against it, and I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to believe anything but that was happening. I guess I've been in it long enough that I'm so comfortable with it that I forget how that felt to have that doubt and that feeling of disbelief at the whole thing. So yeah, I guess you're right. But I see the ships, I see them, I mean, I guess I thought, and I move in that crowd, I'm in that crowd of, all the people who come to the conventions and who lecture at the conventions. And those are my peers now. And I don't have anything in common with my old friends anymore. So I'm only around people who believe in this. So I guess I'm out of touch with what's probably normal.
Yeah, it's good to have your family around to remind you how, mass consciousness thinks.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Yeah, my family.
Well, tell me, your youngest daughter is on board with you now. And
we've reconciled, yes.
And your oldest daughter, does she think it's all crazy, mad, lunatic stuff?
No, she does. I don't believe she does, because my children were very, witness and somewhat involved. So they don't believe that it's craziness. No, they just don't like to talk about it. The image, And I think that's what my youngest daughter, and rightfully so, I understand she's in business and she's, it's a small town. I think that she was afraid the book was going to really cast her in a poor light, but that's not happened. Like I said, I've only had 2 negative emails. If people are snickering behind my back or laughing about me in my little town here, I'm not aware of it. I've had nothing but positive from everyone who's approached me to talk about it. So if there's people who, if they don't want to believe it, I mean, they're just leaving me alone, which is fine. I'm good with that.
When I first went on radio, I was on community radio here in Sydney, and I was talking a lot of subjects that people in mass consciousness don't talk about. And I had one, I expected to be bombarded with a lot of judgment and negativity. Oh, you new age hippie, get off the airways. We don't want to hear all that new age bunk. I expected that, and I really had very little. But I had one email from someone irate that I was talking about energy healing, and that he thought that I was steering people away from doctors and that I was dangerous. And anyway, I responded to his email, And instead of getting angry at him, I just said to him, you know, I can really feel that you're a very caring person, because you wouldn't be as irate if you didn't care about humanity. And I spoke to that part of him that was angry enough, was caring enough to get angry and write an email. And he actually became a huge fan of the show. So it's really interesting, you know, when you come at the judges, at the persecutors, you know, from that place of, I know you care, otherwise you wouldn't be that angry, you actually shift their mindset. Yeah.
I've had that on Facebook. I've had people say things on Facebook or that, and you just have to recognize that it's their fear that's speaking. I mean, they have a terrible fear of it, and I actually feel a lot of compassion for those people when I, like the email I got from this guy this last week. I mean, I'm not judging him, but I'm just thinking, you know, what must his life be like that he's thinking so small. And so, so I haven't gotten around to answering him yet, but I will answer him, and I'll do it when I'm centered in love, you know, and can really feel that. And I'm not going to try to convince him of anything, but I'm just going to respond from a loving place. And he either accepts it or he doesn't. And not my job to try to sell him on anything.
So the book's been out for about 3 years now, right? It's quite new, really. Has anyone approached you about making it into a movie? Yes.
Someone almost immediately bought the rights to it, or optioned it. And but their option has run out now, and people are asking me, and I need to check with them. The book is meant to be made into a movie. And I have to say that I have been getting pressure feelings. I got downloads for the opening scene. I've got downloads for a bunch of things on it. The people who optioned the book are wonderful people. It's a couple, and they've made other movies, and they were committed to keeping it absolutely true to the message, which is you can't be a victim and all that. And they loved that the Course in Miracles teachings were interwoven in it, because that's where they're at. So I was really thrilled and excited. They were having a screenplay written, and they were disappointed with that. And then they decided they were going to go to a TV series or a Netflix thing. Yeah. And I haven't spoken to them, but I got a message. I don't know where it came from. I guess maybe it came from Dad, but I got a message about a week or two ago that I was to start moving in the direction of finding my own screenwriter, and that I should even look into making it into a screenplay or so whatever. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but then I didn't know how to write a book either. And it's supposed to be made into a movie. It's supposed to happen. So we'll see if that occurs or not. So right now, the option has run out. I need to send them an email.
Because, you know, I spoke to Daryl Anker earlier this year, and he has a production company called Zia Films. He's very busy, though. He's very busy. He's got so much on the boil. He's going to make Roswell the musical.
I know it. It's amazing. You know, I flew to California to have a session with him.
Oh, good.
So I know him. You know, because he doesn't do the circuit. He doesn't, do the conferences or anything like that. Yeah. Busy with his life, and that's fine. But I love Bashar. Bashar is a lot. He's a lot like has that same dry sense of humor, and quick comeback, and doesn't mince words. So but he's got a lot going on. I don't know. My guys, they'll arrange it. I felt like this was meant to be this couple, that they were the ones who were meant to take it and run with it, but I'm not sure what's happened to them. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm distracted, but it is. For all those people that are watching that want to see it made into a movie, just visualize it being made into a movie. I see myself watching it with my skeptical brother and saying, this movie, I know this lady. This is all true, it's cool. I mean, I was driving down one of the roads out here in the country. I live in the country. I was driving down this back road, this quiet country road, when all of a sudden, when I was driving here, they open up, how they show you, they pop a screen in front of you, and they show you. I was driving when they showed me this, and I slowed way down. I was busy watching this video running, and they ran it through a couple times, and I was like, it was just really amazing. It was gorgeous. And I was like, what was that? And he said, that was the opening scene to your movie. Right. I was like, so they're very involved in it, and they want to participate in the production of it. They want to make sure the message stays true to what it is. So it'll be an experience to have the movie made, for sure. So I hope it happens. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll happen. It's already done. Already done.
I think so.
We've just got to catch up. We're in this buffer called time. It moves so slowly. Oh, Sherry, it's been such a joy. I don't even know how long we've been talking for. It's been such a blessing to talk with you today.
I have no idea.
I highly recommend the book. You sent it to me. I read it, and I could have read it again and again and again. I just loved it. I just thought.
It's an easy read, isn't it? It's a very easy read. You can just sit down and pop through it in a real hurry.
Well, I think that, it's sort of, it's directed at that generation that does have that skeptical mindset still, because I've seen a lot of younger people that have had a similar experience to you, but they're totally cool with it, and they're just tapped into, they're there. Do you know what I mean? They're not experiencing the fear, and they're not experiencing it's the same thing, but it's not where the majority of the world is, but there are definitely millions of younger people coming through that are not buying into the fear as much as we did.
That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. They're the third wave of volunteers. They're just really
cool. the third wave. Exactly.
Wonderful. Yeah,
so thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's been such a blessing to talk with you today. And what's your website? Tell people your website.
TheForgottenPromise.net. TheForgottenPromise.net, yes. So they can reach me through that if they like, yes. And the book is available on Kindle and Barnes & Noble, any bookstores, or through my website.
And I'll put it on my website as well too. So I'll put a link to the Amazon or Kindle, and you can get it there. So thank you again, Sherry.
Appreciate it very much. It was a pleasure. It was very enjoyable visiting with you. Forgot that I was being filmed.
I know, just a conversation.
I know. Those are dangerous sometimes, but yes.
Thanks so much for joining us for another enlightened conversation on Accentuate the Positive. If you would like spiritual guidance from my guides, blissful beings, go to karenswain.com for a reading, or to listen to more enlightened thought leaders share their wisdom. Go to the listen page on karenswain.com and choose who you want to listen to. All the podcasts are also available on iTunes. Remember to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, you name it, we're there. Until next time, bye for now.
If you feel like that's what you want to do,